All right, people, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the next part of starting our actual body. So at this point, we should have created the wireframe, and this is called an armature. And the reason is this is because if we try to make a body, just like the human body, the muscles and the tissue and everything else and the clay, if you will, is not going to be stiff enough to kind of hold everything together. So we need a skeletal system. And in this case, our skeletal system for the body we're going to make is going to be made out of wire. And that's called an armature. Now, if you did this correctly, we should have a loop up top, small loop. We're going to cover this with the head and neck. Then we have what's going to be the arms. And those things you can see are kind of like, they flop around a little bit right now. That's okay. But you will see that I looped it over here in a way that it's not going to fall off. And we want to try to divide that wire up pretty evenly so we have an even amount. And then I said about the sort of width of your hand from the arm to where you twist things together for the hips. That should be about the width of your hand. And that should mean that we have a nice long bit of wire left over for the legs. I would rather the legs be too long than the chest be too long. So if you're looking at your little man or woman, and you look at the length of the torso from here to here where my hand is, and that seems longer than your legs, well, let's untwist some of that and retwist it so that the legs seem longer. Easier to get rid of material at the bottom, easier just to fold this up at the bottom, much more easier to do than to add extra material. So let's keep the legs nice and long. Now, to sort of build up this body, I didn't give you a lot of clay, so we're not going to sit there and fill this all up with clay. And that's where our tin foil comes in. So what we want to do is we want to kind of beef up the torso. We want to, as soon as I'm done with the demo, I'll answer your questions. But what we want to do is we want to beef up the torso a little bit. So what I'm starting to do is I'm trying to crumple and wrap some of this foil around that part where the arm is attached to. And I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of it. Again, just trying to beef up the body area. That was just really one piece of foil. I'm going to do it again. And again, the more crumpled and the more sort of wrapped around it is, the sort of better the buildup of foil is. And that's just two pieces. I think I gave you guys quite a bit. So what we're going to do, it's 3 pieces right now. We don't want to cover the arms of this body in tin foil or the legs. Really all we want to do is we want to kind of get the torso and chest. And realize we're still going to cover this in clay. So one of the things you want to keep in mind is you want to kind of keep an even amount as you're wrapping this around the wire. And the way I've wrapped it around the shoulders and the body, you can see the wobbly arms are no longer that wobbly. And that's what I want to kind of get out of this. So that's been 3 pieces of foil. Here's 4 pieces. And I want to start seeing that the chest itself is kind of popped out a little bit. This is obviously where we're going to build our rib cage, our pectoral muscles, our abs, things like that. And we don't want to have to use a ton of clay to do that. So we really want to kind of keep this sort of like a human figure. That's 4. There's 5. I'll add a little bit more now to where the hips are going to be. I'll pull the legs out a little bit. All right, you can see how I pulled my legs out a little bit. And just the way I've wrapped sort of foil up and around the shoulders, I'm going to wrap a little bit around the very bottom, which is going to be our hips. So that's 5 pieces of foil. We'll go a little bit 6. Again, I'll crumple it a little bit, wrap it around. Push it together. Again, can see I sort of wrapped some underneath and around over here. It's just going to be the hips, the buttocks, like that. I believe I was up to 6 pieces of foil. You could use pretty much all you got in there. I'll do 7 and I'll do 8, and if you didn't have, for whatever reason, enough foil or used it up, well, if you're in class, I can always give you more. And if you're at home, you can always check your kitchen cabinet. But again, just regular foil is totally fine. So what you see right now, let's see, I've built that torso up significantly. I've wrapped some around the bottom end over here of the hips. I've wrapped some around the top end over here of the shoulders. Kind of kept the rest of it, you know, relatively the same as far as thickness all the way through. We'll adjust that as we build off of it. You don't need to build it bigger than mine. You can see what mine looks like right now. And see the way I have the arms and legs sticking out? That's good. What we want to do is we want to actually bend the leg a little bit, so that when we look at the legs going straight down, we don't have the legs right next to one another. We don't want these two things to be too close to each other, because then we don't have room for the thigh muscles and everything else like that. The arms at this point, they should look relatively like the same length. If they aren't, pull some of that foil off and readjust them. But right now, they're not. If I had tried to move them, they would bend. But right now, they're not flopping around anymore because I wrapped some foil around them. And then again, I can kind of bend my arms a little bit. Now, what I would recommend to you guys, for those of you who are at home, this is obviously a point in making this thing that we're no longer going to put this inside the little white box I gave you. I know I tried to give you a larger box to hold these things and for arms and legs purposes, but this is not going to fit inside there, and that is okay. If you guys are working here at school, again, I'm not going to tell you to fold this thing up to put it in your box. We can either leave them out, or I can give you a little drawer in class to keep them. But this is what it should look like at this point. Again, we're not wrapping any foil around the arms or legs. We're just beefing up the body a little bit. And again, I used about 7 to 8 sheets of foil to do this. And you can see it from all the different angles and sides. And this is what our little armature should look like right now. And once you have it done, we're going to make sure we photograph it and upload that for the assignment. So, take a couple quick pictures, and then I will post this to our show.